Thank you, everyone, and a very warm good evening from India, and good morning to everyone in the US. I'm so happy to, as the founder of the Dais, to be here with all of you to initiate this celebration for celebrating girls in STEM, and how we are doing that is through a very inspiring conversation that's happening today with Gitanjali Rao and Ankita Gulati. Both of them celebrated innovators, scientists in their own fields. So with that, before we go on, we will be discussing a few important instructions for everyone. So during the session, it will be nice if all those who have joined us on Zoom can, if you would like to have your videos on, you can. But please keep your mics muted. We would really appreciate that everyone is respectful towards each other when communicating on the Zoom chat and towards our speakers. All the important links to the calls will be mentioned in the Zoom chat along with the Facebook Live. So please follow in. And same for the polls. We will be very happy if you participate with us in the polls. And finally, after the conversation, there will be a Q&A section with the audience, everyone. So that's where we will have an interaction for with our speakers. So watch out for that. Now, moving ahead, it's very important to set a context for this event. The Dais works basically on sustainable development goals and with youth. And because of that, we have partnered with the 3M CII Young Innovators Challenge Awards this year to put focus on SDGs. And this issue, girls in STEM, again, is a very, very critical issue to all of us. And to throw light, it's a 60-minute entire conversation that we are putting together. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So when we took the registrations from our participants, we asked them a question, which was about one word or phrase that comes to their mind when we say girls in STEM. And these were a few words, and when I read them, they were just so powerful. When I saw, I mean, power literally there, but leadership, empowerment, change, daughter, growth, future, very important, and development. So I think those will also be a few of the themes that we will be going towards today. And I think going to our very important part in the next slide, we have what the UN also has sort of talked about when it comes to women in STEM. And they've talked about not just representation, that women and girls represent half of the world, but gender equality, but full human potential and sustainable development. I think here, uh, I was discussing this with Ankita also earlier. Full human potential is something that even Dais wants, right, as empowerment. And I think Gitanjali is also empowering people like that. Ankita is also doing so. So I think we couldn't have had better speakers for this lovely celebration today. And now moving further, I'll take you through the session flow today. So after this introduction, we have a poll with the audience because again, like the celebration is not just the three of us talking; it's all of our voices going out today together. So please participate in the polls with us. After that, we will be having a showcase of the State of Science Index report of 3M, which will be done. We are very lucky to have Ms. Sandhya Ganpati with us from 3M to do that. And then we will jump on straight into our conversation, have some polls, and then we will be closing the session. So that's how the session will move. Now, why Dais does this, what Dais does, as I said, for us, it's very important to focus on environmental preservation, equality for all, education, and towards a peaceful and a prosperous world. And Dais around the year basically collaborates with multiple stakeholders, but with focus on certain important SDGs, SDG 4, SDG 5, 13, 16 being the key goals. So that's really the context for us to be doing this. And now moving ahead, we have the first poll, and we really hope that all of you participate in this poll. We are asking everyone what, as per you, are the benefits of promoting women in STEM, and in the chat you will have the link already, so you can please click the link and give your answer. When the program closes, we will be showcasing these poll results and also on all our digital media channels. So with that, and again, like for us, this is also a very critical, I think, starting question in my mind. Why do we promote something, right? So with that, we first go to our speaker, Miss Sandhya Ganpati. She's from 3M, and she is going to be showcasing the State of Science Index Report 2021. She'll be sharing a few findings, and I would love to invite ma'am to commence her presentation, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So good evening, everyone. My name is Sandhya Ganapathy, and I lead communications for 3M India. It's an absolute pleasure to be at this forum today. Thank you, Keshav, and the Dais team for giving me the opportunity to speak about how much we in 3M value science. Science matters to 3M because it is how we solve the world's greatest challenges to transform businesses, to improve lives, and to make our world a better place. In tandem with our principles, science enables us to lead societal change, to make the world safer, healthier, greener, and brighter. Science should matter to people because our daily lives and future quality of life depend on it. But does it? Since 2013, we in 3M have tracked how the world values science through our proprietary State of Science Index. This is a global original research survey to explore the image of science. The insights that we glean from this study every year powers 3M's science advocacy efforts around the world. 6 months into the pandemic last year, science became increasingly relevant to our lives, catapulting the image of science into a very positive territory not seen since we started tracking the state of science 4 years ago. Now, more than a year into the pandemic, hope seems to be the defining sentiment of science. India is one of 17 countries where we administer this survey, and here are just a few interesting results from India that have emerged. So 90% of Indians trust science today. There is a renewed enthusiasm amongst our youth, which suggests that the image of science will surely improve as the younger people age. In the next slide, we see that 9 out of 10 Indians agree that more people in the world should be pursuing STEM-related careers. And 89% agree that young people today are more engaged in science and science-related issues than ever before. Clearly, the pandemic has provided a renewed focus for careers in STEM. And finally, awareness on issues of sustainability and the health of our planet. Sustainability is central to everything that we do in 3M. And in India, 88% of Indians feel that they are more environmentally conscious since the onset of the pandemic. 89% believe science will help make sustainability meaningful, and 87% of us want better solutions to mitigate climate change. So with this very brief introduction to the 3M State of Science Index, I will now hand the proceedings back to Keshav. If you would like to know more about the 2021 results, please do visit our website. And Keshav, back to you, and thank you very much for the opportunity once again.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sandhya. I find that in these times of pandemic, especially one of the things that caught my attention was the first sort of trend that 90% of people
Yes, indeed.
are sort of reinstilling their faith in science. And I think with the sanitizers and the masks and the
Indeed.
vaccines, couldn't have been a bigger testament. Sadly, that is what has taken for people. But I think very interesting place. Thank you so much for sharing the presentation and also working with us as 3M, the whole team.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we will be quickly moving to our panel, and I will be just telling you a little bit about my own background. So I started the Dais about 6 to 7 years ago, and since then I've also been working on sustainable development goals with again multiple stakeholders across the governments and in various parts of the world. And I think for me the message for SDGs that really resonates is leaving no one behind. I think that's what sort of caught my attention. And today, I think it's just such a pleasure to have our two wonderful panelists, Ms. Gitanjali Rao and Ms. Ankita Gulati. So Gitanjali is a 14-year-old, and she is basically studying at the STEM school Highlands Ranch in Highlands Ranch, and she's researching at the University of Colorado Denver in the Department of Cell Biology to find solutions for prescription opioid addiction. To be very honest, Gitanjali is an author, an advocate, a very very well celebrated youth that way. And I think, Gitanjali, I get so confused in introducing what to say and what not to say. Can I request you to please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, that was a great starting point to me too. My name is Gitanjali. I'm 15 and I'm an innovator, author, and promoter of STEM, especially for students and youth. So I write and speak at a lot of schools and forums to emphasize the importance of using science technology as a catalyst for social change, while also pursuing my own research in science and technology and coming up with groundbreaking work and devices as well. In addition to that, I was named America's Top Young Scientist in 2017 and Times Kid of the Year in 2020. And since then, I've been continuing to grow my ideas, change my mindset, and continue to be a better and bigger innovator in this world of STEM.
And Gitanjali, we are so lucky to have you with us today. I think that so many people talk about empowering youth and so on, but then the real empowerment comes when we see you or Ankita, for that matter, which is people who are actually in the field doing this and proving to the world that everything is possible in that sense, right? And helping the world sort of fight its own biases that unusually, for some reasons that we have set. So thank you for joining us, and I would like to now introduce Ankita. And Ankita is the founder of Touch Vision. Touch Vision is an IIT Delhi supported inclusive design and technology enterprise aimed at social inclusion. And again, Ankita, I'm sorry, the frame only permits for so many awards and achievements to be put here. So I will also request you, please, to introduce yourself to everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Keshav, for the kind introduction. So I'll start with who I am. So I'm the first engineer in my family and been interested in machines since I was a kid. And luckily, my parents allowed me to open everything at my household. So that's how my interest in research and science started. And why am I working for people with disabilities? What is inclusion? So I just want to throw a random question at all of you, that how many of us have actually played a game as a child with a child with blindness or visual impairment? I mean, in my case, 6 years back, I knew nothing about vision impairment, that how do these kids study and how do they actually learn. As a researcher, I stumbled upon a class of blind students wherein a teacher was trying to teach children about states of India using a handmade map, wherein she had used locally available materials like pulses and Fevicol to denote information. So being an engineer, like imagining that condition wherein a single paper-based thing is being rotated, which is not even accurate, and on the basis of verbal description and randomly touching it at places, you are supposed to decipher the information. That blew my mind. At that moment, I realized children in India and other developing countries are not allowed to pursue. I'm actually using the word allowed because for me, freedom to choose whatever I want to do is the most important core value. So they are not allowed to pursue what they wish to pursue, and everybody is somehow an artist because they are not given the opportunities to study science, maths, engineering, and technology subjects. So that's what we started to change. And over the course of 6 years, our paradigm shift has happened in terms of making accessible devices to inclusive devices, how we can have inclusive tech which can work for all kids rather than working in silos.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ankita, for sharing your journey. And again, it's so inspiring. I think it takes me to sort of a question where I'd like to also bring in Gitanjali about innovation. What what inspires you to innovate, and when did this first happen? Like, how did you start innovating at any level? So, Gitanjali, we would love to hear from you.
I think there was never really one specific moment, right? It was always just so incredibly intuitive for me to be an innovator and to want to continue learning and solving problems. But I think what it was is I let my curiosity drive my mindset, right? Is something since a very young age, I was taught to be a risk taker, but more than that, I was taught to be a risk taker in the work that I do. So I was doing work that no other, what 6 or 7 year old at the time was doing. And the reason for that is because I was so passionate about the world around me and frankly was just curious about, science and technology and looking at innovation as a whole.
Oh, that's I think really interesting. I think you've mentioned some words which sort of have really resonate with me. Curiosity, right? Passion, and for me those were maybe some places where, as a humanities person who studied law and economics, I've tried to do a little bit of coding myself, and that sort of curiosity is so important in many ways. I think even more so now. So. Ankita, do you have a similar story? Do you have a similar motivation?
So, I mean, I've told you about the incident which served as a trigger for what I do right now. And what is innovation according to me? What got me interested in innovating was more about how can you create user-centric tech? Because leaving no one behind is something what we wish to do. That how you can create more inclusive and accessible tech for every user out there. So, I mean, looking at my background, you can see that being an engineer, then a researcher and a scientist. I worked as a scientist for over 4 years. You have this mindset that you know all about tech and you can encapsulate and make some cool tech which can transform someone's life out there. That's how like I eventually started. But over the course of years, I've learned that the tech has to be really simple and intuitive for user, and that is innovation. If that can be inculcated in their daily lifestyle and create that small trigger or like the action which can change their lives in some way. So I'll give you an example. One of our devices, which makes print accessible for every blind user, whether working in a company, in a government organization, primarily that's the job Indian population gets. Like when it comes to people with disabilities or a child studying in a school or a special school, they don't have access to print, which is something very basic. So they are at least a century behind us in accessing information. So I'm not talking about digital inclusion here. They don't even have basic access to print. So it took us 4 years to make a very simple mechanical device, which a 6-year-old to a 70-year-old is using right now to access print on the go.
Yeah, that blows my mind every time that one device can be used by so many people, and that it could be also possible.
Yeah, and what Gitanjali spoke about curiosity, that is what we are trying to create, that everybody can develop that mindset and have the equal playing field, whether they are with disabilities or without disabilities.
Gitanjali, anything you would like to add? Any story this brings back for you?
I think so. When I was young, maybe 3 or 4, I was that kid that you name it, I did it, right? I did every activity possible. Especially as a girl, it was very intimidating doing things specifically in a male dominated field, right? But I tried everything. And the deal was I had to go to one class, one lesson, one practice. And if I didn't like it, I could drop the next day. And so really what I learned at a young age was exposure, right? I saw so many opportunities in front of me but was able to carve my own path. And I think those are the opportunities we need to provide to students today, right? Allow them to carve their own path, but give them the opportunities to do it. Because sometimes it is easy to get stuck in that rut, right? What is my passion? What do I want to do? And that's the way I found my passion at an early stage, because I knew my other options and I knew what I wanted to go for at a very, very early age. And I think it's always stayed consistent like that, right? Whatever I do, I spend time looking at the risks, looking at what exposure I can put out there, and then looking at what I can do to start to dive into it.
Yeah, and I this also reminds me that a couple of days ago was the International Youth Day. So let me also extend my wishes to both of you for the International Day of Youth 2021. Uh, and Gitanjali, that thought of exposure and carving your own path, I'm going to take that in some more time with you. And Ankita had also told me something about seizing the opportunity. So I think that's something we will be talking about in the due course. Um, let's look at a little bit about the STEM field itself, and your own experiences, as again, like I find it very hard, and we were having this discussion previously as well, to whether to call somebody a female scientist or a young scientist, or what label do I put before the innovator, right? So I'm going to just throw a straightforward question in that sense, that in your own experience in the ecosystems, uh, how have you experienced it? What has it been different than other people you know, and so on? Uh, Vis-a-vis gender also. Any anecdotes will also be nice, I think, for all of us.
Oh, okay, there's a lot. I'm trying to kind of carve it down a little bit. But absolutely, right? When you think about one, being 15 years old, second, being a female of, a South Indian female, right? Or a South Asian female, also South Indian. But then, especially just thinking about how many people don't see that as a scientist, right? And how we have created the standard definition of what a scientist or innovator is, and how we're trying to break it, right? And so there have been a lot of, backlash that I've received, and people telling me that I can't do it because I'm a girl, or because I'm 15, or because I don't have the same opportunities as anyone else. And while those are very, valid in one perspective, essentially, in the long run, I've started to understand that you can't change what people say to you, but you can change how you react to them. And that's what we need to spend time teaching more girls and students, is the fact that that's the biggest challenge you're going to face. People are going to shoot you down, but you have to change the way that you react to them. And that's what I am currently working on every day as well, too. But that is probably the biggest challenge that I face in the field. And whether, even to this day, I'm still in classes being the only girl in a computer class. And what I've learned is that, as long as I'm doing what I'm passionate about, that's what matters. But yeah, that's essentially the biggest challenge I've
Uh,
faced.
can I also ask you a little bit around? I saw that you're also at a school, but also researching at a university. Um, how has that? Because Ankita is also doing research while she's doing the entrepreneurship. So I want to just see in this, from school to college to further research, how is the experience? So if I get Gitanjali just a quick comment, and maybe in terms of both the school and college, then I can get Ankita in.
Yeah, so just with like what research I've been able to do, or
How has your experience in being a woman
have,
or being a girl been different in a school or in a university when you go?
it's definitely weird, right? It's very underrepresented. So you can often find yourself being the only girl in a building, a very big building. Kind of what I've started to recognize is that you just have to look in the right places, right? And that's really where this importance of role models comes in. And I think that's where we need to put this out there more, right? Seeing more people who look just like you in the field. And one of my favorite quotes from, Dr. Jay Shusith, from 3M in the United States as well, is something she says is, sometimes being the only women in the lab makes me a trailblazer. And I absolutely agree, right? Is if someone does it first, then everybody else will follow. And that's why I'm hoping to be, one of the first out there to share that, you don't have to look like everyone else in the field to want to do something. All you have to do is have that passion and drive within you. And it's the same way for the research that I do, for the organizations that I work with. I often find myself being the only girl in the room. But what I've recognized is that So because I'm the only girl in the room, I'm empowering tons more girls to want to do the same.
That's just so well put, Gitanjali, and I completely agree. I think that's something that I'd also mentioned at the beginning, that instead of someone advocating or teaching something, people learn when they see. They truly get inspired.
Yeah.
Ankita, yeah, conferences, pitching sessions, tons of these experiences. What would you like to tell us?
I can totally resonate with how Gitanjali started that there are so many of those experiences that it's not possible to like condense them in one sentence. But definitely, like what she said about that, following your passion and be like following the right role models and being a role model yourself and living that experience is more important. And what she told about like choosing your battles, basically how you react to a certain situation. So you spoke about conferences, pitching sessions, fundraising. I mean, at my institute, where our company is incubated right now, there's only one female in her 20s who is the CEO, and people can't digest that. My own colleagues in the incubator. So it's been a battle for me in the company like the last 3 years, but they have accepted it now. And that's how we create change, by living the change. Another experience has been that like often people try to undermine you by telling you that you don't deserve what you have achieved till now. So you really have to be like wise in how do you react to situations. That what determines like where should you put your attention and where you choose your battles wisely and focus on your own work. Because once you have broken that silo or the ceiling, nobody can do it. I'm the only one in my incubator who's the national award from President of India and Post 30 under 30. And they tell me that you are being too cocky about it. I tell them it's confidence.
Yeah, Ankita, we were discussing this about like at the point which comes when you recognize that you are a woman in STEM. Like, how much do you embrace that identity? If you remember, we also sort of spoke
Yeah, you
about
had
this
asked me
earlier.
that whether
Yeah.
I want to be called as a woman scientist or an innovator or a woman innovator. And I told you that when I was starting like a decade back, I thought it doesn't matter. But over the years, I've realized that till the time, as Gitanjali also emphasized, that it becomes a common practice to have the stereotypical image of a woman as a scientist or researcher or a business person. Till that time, I would like to be like addressed as a woman entrepreneur, woman scientist, woman researcher, or woman innovator.
Okay. Gitanjali, anything you'd like to say? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, right? And I think the way we need to invoke more of that, I'm gonna go into more of an approach on how to involve more girls in STEM. It is concept of one role models we were talking about, but second, introducing STEM in a way that isn't always portrayed as just robots and coding, right? Because that's what we've seen it as. We need to portray STEM in a way where it's more revolved around the applications of STEM to make a difference in our community. And I think that's a great starting point when it comes into innovation in science, because that's what got me involved in it in the first place.
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many layers to from where like the push and needs to happen, and this framework needs to ecosystem needs to be nurtured at a youth level, at a girls level, at a women in STEM, at a women level. I mean, there are different kind of challenges which adults, let's say, like when I say as against youth, me being a youth. Which they face. So there are different ceilings that everyone's trying to break. So it takes me to this to a larger question also to both of you. uh, what do you think different stakeholders can do to improve this situation? We can't magically have a PhD overnight. A PhD takes years and years to build. We magically can't have an innovator tomorrow. So how? What is it that we need to do, um, as per you, like different stakeholders as you have interacted, engaged? What can they do better to promote more girls in STEM? And I think it will definitely lead to a better future for all of us. Would love to know from both of you, Gitanjali and then Ankita, please.
You broke up a little bit at the end. Can you do that last sentence for me really quickly?
Yeah, I was asking you, what do you think different stakeholders, all of us, can do at their own level to change
Perfect. Yeah.
this ecosystem and change things around?
I think the biggest thing is opportunity, right? Not being afraid to say yes to students or girls or give them the chance, right? Sometimes that risk is what you need to take to make that difference. So, my biggest piece of advice is take that first step before anybody else does. And see what impact it makes and then come back around to it, right? Because that's what we're seeing a lot more of in the future. It's a lot more opportunity for innovation, and we need to start to take advantage of innovation and creativity, because right now 50% of women's thoughts and ideas aren't being recognized. So we need to bring our perspective to the playing field as well. And how that's going to come from is opening up opportunities, saying yes, and forming, relationships, mentorships, internships, sponsorships, whatever is needed to drive a whole community of change makers.
Yes, that push and the right priorities in that sense are super critical. I completely agree with you, and I think Gitanjali, some of the things that you've said are so important all throughout, as well, which for me, like in an education methodology as well, could have very good reformative effects on educational institutions at large. So thank you, and more power to you on that front as well. So Ankita, what do you what has your experience been? And I know that Gitanjali has also sort of experienced the American ecosystem in terms of research and so on. And here we are very lucky that we have, in contrast, your experience in India, which will probably shape its own. So what do you think about this in your experience?
Yeah, essentially, as you said, what all stakeholders, academia, industry, or what all can do. So anything which they wish to devise, any plan or any policy change, that should head towards the mindset change of equal treatment. So what Gitanjali said is that say yes to women or girls who are coming for an opportunity. So that is when you have that mindset of treating everybody as equal. So that's what is required, and withholding like female participants during their journey. So I'll mention a very small example during what happened during our 3M Viper ceremony in 2018. So 3M also awards rural innovators. So there was a girl, and it was the first time that she had stepped out of her village and taken on a flight and came out to Bangalore from Rajasthan. And she had language barriers and obviously the ecosystem barriers, like she didn't knew that how corporates or tech or industry works. So for day one, she was not talking to anyone. But eventually we had to facilitate an ecosystem where she feels comfortable to share her ideas and what she is passionate about. So that is the core theme of any policy when you talk about gender pay gaps, policy level changes, any academic schemes. This year, IIT Delhi has also tried to increase the number of female BTech bachelor students by creating certain schemes. But what can we do? Like we all have in India, at least we have equal number of women participants entering the workforce, but they drop out after 3 or 4 years. So we really have to address those issues, that what sort of handholding like females get once they are in any sector, be it academia, industry, or anything. And what you also spoke about, seizing the opportunities. Yeah. So we are working with MIT. I started from there, like basically management, but I saw one blind guy walking on the road, and I just bumped into him that I work for people with blindness and I wish to talk to you. He happened to be the material science professor out there who is congenitally blind. And that's how I ended up that collaboration. So you really have to be the one seizing out the opportunities, and equally the ecosystem has to respond in an equal way. He treated me equal. I don't know if that is possible in India, but I have been lucky on that.
Yeah, and we were also discussing how, like, sometimes culturally, like, these things have their own unique experiences, and I'm sure, like, both of you work globally in terms of whether you're speaking with different people or whether you're collaborating. So um, how do you, just a quick, like, a reflection, how do you sort of, do you see some bright spots also in terms of the last, let's say, your years of journey, 5 to 6 years? Have you seen any bright spots in certain areas that, like, you went there and you're like, wow, this is what I was meant to do, this is the kind of people I was meant to be with? And that possibility also exists, maybe at a smaller level, but anything you'd like to share, any positive stories of how like a supporting, nurturing ecosystem has helped you? Gitanjali, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I can start this off. I think it's what it was is it fostered my creativity, right? And that's what I learned. Obviously there were so many setbacks and so many places where I would have done things differently. But I think in the long run, what I kind of recognize is that I wouldn't be where I am today if I wasn't 15, right? I wouldn't be able to put all these opportunities nor have the time for it. So it gave me so much opportunity to go forward with these ideas, really. But kind of what I've recognized and learned is I am much more capable than what I thought I was capable of doing. And since I started, coming up with ideas, I got over what? Fear of public speaking, fear of quite literally talking to people. I was a very shy girl. And since then, I've, grown as a human being, grown as an innovator, but most importantly, have spread my message to others who are just like me, but sometimes don't know where to start. And that's kind of what I've learned from this journey is that one person can, solve world problems, but a community is what is needed to make a difference.
Yes, yeah. Like the leadership has to start from somewhere, right? Like the innovation idea has to originate from some point. So I think it's tremendous that you're that light, you're that beacon of light for so many, and I'm sure that more and more girls, and not just girls, I think young boys also who sometimes are hesitant, who are shy, they will also get inspired when they see a like-aged person doing so well. Like Greta is another sort of a role model that we see out there, right? Malala is another one who we have seen is has really shaped. I mean, in many ways, how we think and broken a lot of ceilings for glass ceilings for everyone. So yeah, Ankita, what do you think?
Yeah, not just the young girl and boys, but like young girls and boys with disabilities as well. So one of our students who uses our products has recently topped his law school without category. I'm not mentioning the category, he has topped it overall, and he's made it to one of the top law schools in India for his LLM. So that has been like quite a surprise for us because like what we spoke about is how can you translate research into something which works in the real world. And when it comes to breaking my own sort of understanding of what I can do and I cannot do, so that has also transformed over the last decade, as Gitanjali told about it. So I started as a computer scientist, but right now I work in mechanical sort of stuff. I do fundraising, I do marketing. So probably whenever we start like judging a new product idea or a new service idea, we're like, there's nothing we can't do. And the entire team, we just blurt out any crazy thing we can think of in the world, and we are sure that we can pull this off in some way. And in terms of ecosystem partners, we also have many positive stories out there. So I would like to mention one particular incident. We know that Future Group is one of the major retail conglomerates in India. So Future Group CEO, I just went up to him and told him that we want to create something on inclusive shopping for your stores. So it's a completely new idea, somebody he doesn't know and who's a female. So he gave me just first 10 minutes. After that, he came to my office and we spoke for 2 hours and we got that. And we are working in there like 10 stores right now. Obviously the pandemic came, but we are still in touch with them. So there are many positives in the story.
Big congratulations, and Ankita, I'm so happy that seizing the opportunity, and as Ankita and Gitanjali has also talked about, taking the initiative, taking the exposure. You may not like it, don't do it the next day, but show up, right? Like do these things. So and I think that they extend beyond the STEM education purview, like at a larger gender equality sense as well. That also creates enablers and disablers, right, in the STEM field sometimes, that it's a mindset that the parents may have, and that has nothing to do with STEM in itself, but it's just a mindset problem that they have. So I think last couple of questions I would like to sort of touch upon is 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 how you sort of overcame that, if you had, and I think Gitanjali has already talked about a little bit about a 15-year-old, a South Indian girl, a South Asian girl, right? So what message would you have for everyone out there, not just the girls. I think the problem is not the girls, right? The problem is the non-girl segment in that sense, which is exercising this bias and all of this. So is there a message that you would like to share with everyone, and and uh, not just, as I said, for girls, like the message is important for everyone today. Yeah. So Gitanjali, please.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to recognize that our generation is growing up in a place where we're seeing problems that have never existed before. And right now, more than ever, innovation is not an option, it's a necessity. So do a little something every day to meet up to this goal of yours, right? We all have to be contributing members of society, and we all need to create a difference in our community. So don't be afraid to go out there and make your difference, right? Because innovation needs all of us, and more importantly, change needs all of us. So, you know, as long as we continue to innovate and solve problems, then the future is in the best hands possible. So, yeah, those are my lasting words.
Thank you, Gitanjali, and I'm sure I hope and I'm sure that they will be resonating with a very large number of girls in the coming time. So and with everyone who can nurture and support that ecosystem. So thank you so much, Ankita. What would you like to add?
My message again would be from my own journey that just go and seize the opportunity and define what you want, what you are passionate about, and follow it through. Don't let any limitations come up in your way of realizing your own goals. Be unapologetic and just go out there.
And be yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Ankita. Please go ahead.
Yeah, if I am not authentic to myself, I'll not be able to pull off anything. That's what I know.
That's very true, and no, that's absolutely very true. Thank you for these lovely, powerful messages. Um, as you all know that the reason that we have gathered here for this conversation is also one of the key parts is the Young Innovation Challenge Awards itself, and both of you, besides being innovators, successful innovators, are also winners of challenges respectively, whether it's the Discovery 3M Discovery Innovation Challenge that I know Gitanjali had won, I think, in 2017, 2018, and whether it's Ankita, who won the Vaika Challenge in 2018. So I just want to take you back, like a throwback. I want to know a little bit on what was your experience like, and what kind of advice would you like to give to all our participants, who will be sort of now moving ahead with their respective challenges, and just for any general pitching also, what is your advice and your experience, both?
Do you want me to start?
Yes, please, Gitanjali. Yes.
Okay, cool. I guess there's a lot to it, right? When it comes to something like that, really what I recognize is confidence is what comes up first, right? Your personality, your confidence, your curiosity, and your content that you know better than anyone else is what is most important, right? So if you are yourself, just like we were talking about earlier, right? If you are yourself, if you are, maintaining that creative mindset of yours, you're not afraid of what other people think, that's already half the battle, right? And now the other half the battle is just doing it and making it be done. So just go into it with the same mindset that you do anything else, right? And what happens happens. The real reason we do that is for the experience in the long run.
Thank you. Thank you, Gitanjali. And that confidence, and once you get it, you start wondering why I didn't have it before, like what is this, what was missing. But I think once you get it, it sort of can really self resonate, like with itself, with your learnings, and can really go miles, right? Do you want to also tell us a little bit about the innovation itself that got you the award, or yeah?
Absolutely, yes. So I created a device to help detect for lead in drinking water faster and more inexpensive than current tools using carbon nanotube sensor technology. And I called it Tethys, and I created the device itself in 2017. But right now it's actually a fully patented device, and I'm working on partnering with mass manufacturing organizations for scale testing as well as bulk production of the device as well.
Yeah, so thank you. And I didn't plan for this, but I would love to know a little bit about your book as well, because I love the fact that you're a STEM advocate. I mean, besides your research and education, you're taking that role on as well. So please also tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote my book, A Young Innovator's Guide to STEM, to stray away from this idea of just inspiration and go into motivation. It's a prescribed process for any student or teenager to start to get involved in the STEM, and it uses real world tips, tools, techniques, graphs, and has lesson plans and workspaces to start to get involved in education. So it's a guide for anybody who wants to solve problems but sometimes doesn't know where to start.
Thank you, and I think next steps for all of you could be just Google Gitanjali and go to her website. It's a very nice, beautiful website, and you can check out her book. I had done that, so that's why I'm telling you that that's what the best process could be. Thank you so much, Gitanjali, and I continue to again, like I look forward, wishing you best that you continue to excel like that and find more solutions and enable more and more people through direct impact and also inspiring. So thanks a lot for everything you're sharing today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ankita, any what would you like to say as your concluding set of comments? And what was your innovation? Was it Touch Vision itself that won the innovation award? So
Yes.
please just tell us a little bit about that
At that
experiences.
time, we were just starting to register as a firm. We were just an innovation. We were not a business back then. So 3M was like the stepping stones for us in terms of business. And as I had earlier spoken about, like as Gitanjali also said, that it's not about winning or losing. It's about gaining experience and exposing yourself to different opportunities. So I earlier spoke about one experience wherein I spoke about a girl who stepped for the first time out of her life to such an event. And on day 3, she was giving a television interview. So that experience has still stayed with me, and I'm still friends with all the innovators. And another one was that how does Vika help? So I got a chance to go to their research lab and spend like hours there and not going from there, because that's where you see happy researchers. In India, that is very rare, that wherein you see happy researchers or translational research. So that was a big plus for me. And apart from that, you can like this event itself is in a big way telling that how the ecosystem has supported us, the female technological innovators of the 3M Vika challenge, that we are still being acknowledged. So that is what we require from the ecosystem.
I think both of you should be ready to keep getting acknowledged time and again. And my best wishes to both of you. And we should keep celebrating the girls in STEM, or more frequently. So I will definitely look forward in my personal professional capacity both to get to know you more and see you achieve everything and continue to inspire us. So thank you both of you, Gitanjali and Ankita, on behalf of the Dais, our entire team, and the 3M team for taking out your time. And that concludes our panel. Gitanjali and Ankita, if you want to say anything to the audience, any concluding messages, you can, and then we will move the audience to a Q&A session with you very quickly.
Ooh, let's see. I guess my biggest thing is, don't be afraid to try new things, right? Worst thing that's going to happen is you fail, or the worst thing that's going to happen is you get the answer no. But you can always bounce back from that and make a difference in your society. And there's never a limit to the amount of times you keep trying or going. So come up with creative solutions. And if you mess up, just think of it as another step to success.
Thank you, Gitanjali. Thank you, Ankita.
Yeah, for me, it's all about like stay true or stay authentic to yourself and define what your goals are and stick to them and persevere and finally you are going to realize them. There's no other option. Everything else is a stepping stone, a step closer to the end goal.
Thank you. Thank you for your messages, and which closes our this segment. And we have a poll now, which we will be taking you to. I think it is for us what we call as our call to action poll in some sense, because we want to ask everyone that you have heard Ankita, you have heard Gitanjali, uh, and now what will you do at your own level? How will you contribute to promoting girls in STEM at a personal and professional level? So again, the links have been mentioned, and we will be posting the final results of this poll later on our website and on our digital media. So I think what I can probably answer it for myself, maybe self reflection would be that I will continue to be mindful and ensure that my own colleagues are mindful all the time, that they don't have intrinsic biases against any person we meet based on their gender, among other identities. So I think that's a key thing, that the bare minimum that anyone can do: get over your biases and accept the person. And at a professional level, sure, as you know, the Dais is committed to working on gender equality and to promoting STEM um, and girls in STEM. Um, so I'm very also happy to share with both of you that our gender ratio in our organization is less men and more girls. So for us, we see the benefits. We see how great a working environment, how moving, supportive, nurturing it could be as well. And I hope that all of you can sign up for this poll. Okay, so with this, we will now move ahead to our questions. So, how we can ask questions to our speakers is for those on the Zoom chat. You can write your questions there, or you can raise your hand. And on Facebook, again, you can mention them in the comment section, and we will be taking a few of these questions for our speakers. So we will be taking 3 to 4 questions. Anyone who has any questions, we request you to please post them in the chat. And while people are writing their answers, I had a question which I remember asking Ankita, and Ankita actually explaining about inclusion, about inclusive tech versus accessible tech. Was it that, Ankita? So
Yes.
could you like just tell us a little bit about what is this difference? You said that you made a shift from inclusive tech towards accessible tech. So just a quick like a comment around it.
I'll again go back to how we started, that how many of us have played a game with a child with blindness? Majority of us have not. Yeah. So how can you bridge that gap that all the children are enjoying one sport or one game in one go? Initially, what we tried to do was that how can we make pictures and diagrams accessible for children with visual impairment so that STEM subjects can be made accessible for them. And that's what we did for 3 years. Over the course of years, interacting with the users and with their continuous feedback and iterations, we realized that even if we deploy the tech, we are not going to have more people driving their children to inclusive schools. They'll still be limited to home or special schools wherein their full potential is not being realized. So what we can do to drive that change? We realize that we have to create an ecosystem shift wherein the mindset of both the participant, the child with disability, the parents, and another enablers in the ecosystem, school authorities or the government bodies, has to change. How can we initiate that change? So, I mean, I also serve as one of the youngest assistive technology subject matter experts with the Rehabilitation Council of India. We have created an assistive technology module for them that we can like educate people that what this tech does. Another important step was that how they can also interact with that same tech and they can be a participant in the journey so that we have one resource for all. So that is inclusive tech. By leaving no one behind is important. So we don't want to create another silo where you have in the class of 53 children who are disabled are playing together and other 47 are playing together, wherein right now we have one left out. We don't want to create that. We want all 50 of them enjoying the same class or the same sport.
Wow. Okay. That is, I think it's a big probably for people an eye opener as well to understand something beyond inclusion. We are all always using that word inclusion, but I think Ankita, this is very fascinating to know, and it also sort of expanded my own understanding of.
Yeah, when I mentioned about making Big Bazaar stores accessible, so we all go to Big Bazaar. It's not like we are creating a special store for a blind person. They will also be able to use the same store. In simple terms, that's what inclusive tech is.
Right. So I think we have two questions from the audience. Gauri from India has asked. I think I'll ask Gitanjali first this question and then Ankita. So, how have your parents contributed to your interest in science?
So I think I talked about exposure, right? And I think that was the biggest contribution. But beyond that, it was just belief, right? A lot of times they don't know exactly what I'm doing, but on top of that, what they're able to do is provide me, the resources or even just, the support for me to keep going. And having someone who essentially is able to support your passion is so life-changing, especially when it comes to you being a student, right? I think the biggest thing that I had to accept is that it's okay to ask for help, right? And so what my parents were able to do was, not only provide me with that help necessarily, but also just give me the motivation to keep going every day.
Yeah, more often than not, Gitanjali, parents end up being barriers from like in India, especially from what we have seen. So this is, I think, a very important lessons for parents also to get inspired from, and see how much they can nurture and where it can take a child. I don't want to again use the word child for you, but in a larger sense, that where that nurturing parenthood can take. So thank you for sharing. And I think kudos to your parents as well from all our sides. So Ankita, what would what would you like to say?
My parents have largely been enablers, so I've been following my passion since I was like 5. I've been screwing up all the devices at my home, opening them, and they allowed me to do so even if they don't close. And in contrast, my female friends at school, they were not allowed the access to the TV remote. And I was able to open the television even if it doesn't close. So I was able to explore that. Wherein my family had no background in engineering or tech, and they actually realized that this is what makes me happy, and I was allowed to do that. So they have been largely an enabler, and they have also motivated me to pursue whatever. I mean, for them, the core value is just do whatever makes you happy. So that is primarily very non-Indian, that you don't have any pressures or any sort of biases coming in from parents, but I've been very lucky on that. I'm blessed in that terms.
Okay, thank you. I think that's very inspiring to hear, honestly, and very nice to hear against the usual stories of barriers that we hear. So thank you for sharing, both of you. We will take one last question because of paucity of time. That is from Dr. Shruti Singh, and her question is: what can we do to reduce the rate of young girls dropping from innovation after they hit their first failure? And she teaches young girls, and she encounters this. So, any insights you would like to share, both of you?
Well, I can go first here. I think the biggest insight is what I was talking about earlier, is that forming a connection between science, which is more than just what meets the eye, right? Showing that you can connect science with art and reading and other concepts, and share that you can make science and spin it around whatever you want it to be, right? And so I think why girls are dropping out is because you feel compelled to go to other subjects that more girls are represented in. But I think what we need to do is continue to put that message out there that if I can do it, you can do it, and anyone can do it.
That's actually quite the need of the hour. I think you've hit a very important sort of a note here. So thank you for sharing that, Gitanjali. And Ankita, what would you like to say?
Yeah, that again boils down to that how do you teach about science? If you will go with the basic principles, you'll be able to relate every subject to a science discovery. It is not limited to some titles like a researcher or a scientist. Everybody is using science in some or the other way in their life. And how can you, like, another thing is we spoke about one aspect that you go out, seize the opportunity, you be confident about yourself and follow your passion. That creates another block that you don't seek out the help necessary for realizing your dreams. I mean, you feel that everybody is out there to somehow disarm you and pursue, not like to be a barrier for you. So you really have to have that mindset shift that when to seek help so that you can overcome that failure.
Yeah, and I think especially like in science when we are doing research in the ecosystems, and now with COVID, like labs are not functioning at all places, so collaboration is all the more difficult in wet lab spaces and so on. So I think that seeking help, and whether it's the surveys also that people have to do to collect data, I think there's quite a few challenges and where these things can help.
Yeah. So from last 4 years, I mentor every year I mentor 30 girls who are from standard 10 to BTech second year on how they can pursue their own projects. So this year I was joking with them, if I would have studied in the online mode in school, I would have never opted for engineering. So as you said, that collaboration is all the way more important right as of now in the terms of like how the pandemic has affected everything.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So, thank you all the audience members. We will also try to email all these questions to the speakers in the coming time. So, and thank you, Dr. Shruti, for your question. Now, we would like to also show you the result of the first poll that I'd request my team to kindly showcase the result. So, what are the benefits of promoting girls in STEM? Ankita, Gitanjali, anything that catches your attention in this chart?
Diversity. That's the first thing I saw.
Okay.
Equality, empowerment.
Gitanjali, what about you?
Oh, I don't know. A lot of these are really good. I really like the diversity and inclusion one.
Okay, so clearly, what our audience also has a very powerful. I think we are very lucky to have an audience which also resonates with us in terms of the passion and the recognizing this is an important issue. So let me thank all our audience members who've also joined in, and I will request now. Our my colleague Miss Astha to be proposing a vote of thanks for which will bring us to the close of the event. So Astha, if we could have you on screen with us, please.
Good evening, all. This was really insightful, like, hearing from Gitanjali and Ankita. It was really motivating for all of us to, go beyond our comfort zone and do things which we are scared to do. On behalf of the Dais, I asked our guests to take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this conversation on celebrating girls in STEM organized by a platform. At the outset, I thank Ms. Sandhya Ganpati from 3M for showcasing the State of Science Index report. I would also like to thank and give an honorable mention to our partners 3M. I would also like to thank our speakers, Ms. Gitanjali Rao and Ankita Gulati, for this insightful conversation, and our founder and moderator, Mr. Keshav Gupta. A special thanks to the organizing committee and a dear audience who could take out their time on a Saturday evening and join us and contribute to this event. This indeed has been an insightful evening and morning. I would also like to thank all of you for being over here. And I would also like to let you know that this conversation is available on Dais YouTube page, as well as the live video is available on Facebook. With all these warm words and kind message, we move to the end of today's seminar. Thank you and have a great weekend ahead.
And also thank you, Astha. Thank you so much. And on behalf of our team, let me also extend my advance wishes on our Independence Day in India tomorrow. The so I hope that all of you celebrate the day, and thank you so much, all of you, and we will hopefully see you soon. So thanks once again, all of you. Cheers to all of you.